All right, welcome back to Last Week Chopped Up. I'm here, as always, with my boy Jeremy. We grew up together in Houston, and now we live on opposite sides of the planet. I'm here in Amsterdam. Jeremy's out there. Now in LA, used to be in San Francisco. And what
Yes,
we do on this
sir.
podcast, we talk about tech news, we talk about politics, current events, mix in some sports, our perspective working in the tech industry, and our perspective as lifelong friends kind of going through this life, and that's what we do. And our segments are usually we talk about the screw up of the week, we talk about European news and our tech news of the week, and we just have the general chop it up section. So, we normally lead in, Jeremy, a little general chop it up.
Yeah.
NCAA tournament recap. We know what
Yes, sir.
happened. Baylor kind of walked on everybody they played. What do you got to say, man? I didn't expect that.
Yeah, it was kind of disheartening. We did get the excellent Gonzaga UCLA
Yeah.
game. So that one was an all-timer, just back and forth, shot after shot. It's like, oh my God, is UCLA really gonna do this? So we kind of got, I think, our big game there. Because Baylor just like, what's up, Houston? Crushed you.
Yep.
What's up, Gonzaga? Crushed you. Man, I tuned in, I think 3 minutes late to the game. And Baylor's already up 9-0, and Gonzaga was looking shook, and Jalen Sully's got a second foul. I was like, oh, is this over?
It's one game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one game, and it can go fast.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. I think Baylor's a little bit of an older team, but people like Timmy, who are doing work, they did work against my boys SC. It's like, oh, you're not athletic enough to keep up with these people. They are just over and over again saying, I'm going to switch, draw you out, and go right at you. And you're like, oh, yeah. So this is why you're going to be like a late second round draft pick. Because if you think this is bad in college, it's like every NBA team is going to be like, all right, well, let's get this switch. And now you are guarding LeBron James.
Yeah.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I watched the Houston game because being a Houston fan and I looked at Baylor, and that's matchup problems all over the court. And you see it in college basketball sometimes when you just have a little bit of that elevation of the skill level and be able to run an offense that just has that ball motion, finds the matchups, exploits them like you do in the NBA, and you get found out. And you watch NBA basketball all the time. Guy comes on 3 times down the court, gets taken down. 3 minutes later, guy goes off, right? Like that can happen. And that's someone that's a professional basketball player, right? These are kids. It's a 40-minute game, and there's only one game. The first 10 minutes don't go well. It's kind of hard to come back. I didn't see it coming, but you did get the matchup everybody wanted. Obviously, Baylor clearing away national title holders. I don't know. On the women's side, it was a 1-point game. Stanford took it out. It was a really great game, and it was cool to see 2 black coaches in the Final Four on the women's side. So a lot more progress on diversity on the women's side than the men's side.
Yeah, and this probably surprised you. Hang on with some buddies. They're big sports gamblers, and they have money on that game. I literally watched every second of the women's championship game. Mind you, I turned off the guys' game at halftime. I was like, I know it's down to 9. I think Baylor's going to kill them. I put on episodes of The Good Wife. I was like, I'd rather rewatch that. I'm not watching this, but
that's adult talk right there.
Right. But I've been here like, let's go. I think her name was Ari on Arizona. I was like, let's go, Ari, let's get it. But yeah, definitely a better game, even though it was crazy. Like, I think Stanford had like 25 turnovers or something. Like, it wasn't well played necessarily, but it was competitive.
Yeah. And in the end, when the final shot can go in or not, I find the women's game pretty compelling. And it came up with UNC with Roy Williams retiring, and it came up as coaching candidates. And someone brought up, Dawn Staley, who's the coach at South Carolina and is really thought to be a rising star, obviously, in just the coaching ranks overall, not the women's coaching ranks. And no one's made that head coaching jump. And it was suggested that Carolina should take that chance. Obviously, they didn't go that direction. You think it's going to happen soon? How do you think about that when you see someone? Because the game is not so different now with the new rules coming in. We talked about the $500,000 D League, G League player. You're talking about a game that's going to resemble more, I would say, the 4-year develop the players kind of mold that the women's coaches have been specializing in. How do you see it?
I think, man, that jump's still going to be hard. Yeah. Like, when it's like, hey, how many black men have we hired? Then like take the next step of like, all right, let me hire a black woman. You're like, oh, that's a lot of moving forward. Not saying we won't get there eventually, but I think if it was just a little more proven. Like maybe she'd won, I think she's won one championship. Like, oh, she's won a few championships. Obviously, they're like usually contenders now.
Yeah.
But I think you probably just need a bit more resume to where
Team USA, whoever coach Team USA,
whoever comes in, medal. Because you got to think these are 18-year-old boys coming in. They kind of got to know, like, one, which they should know now, she don't play. So that one's already checked off. She don't play with your ass.
Yeah.
But being like, all right, well, she's won like 4 ladies championships or whatever.
She's just
gets the job done.
Yeah.
So I think if it was, not saying she needs to be in the game as long as Gino or Yema, but it was like, okay, here's like Black Lady Gino. Like, okay. Like, I better get mine.
Okay, but feel me on this one. If you're her and she's won 4 titles, Team USA gold medal, imagine all this stuff happens. Do you go to a mid-major men's program? Because I don't think, well, maybe the Blue Bloods UNC would take that sort of risk, but you might imagine it's more at a power, not non-power 5 or a power 5 team that's not up there. Do you make that jump, or do you live the good life just kind of dominating your area, getting paid a lot of money? I mean, it's not going to be a big salary change, I don't think,
will it?
If it's a mid-major program, it depends. Look, I'll give you a concrete example. Wichita State, their coach just got fired because he's a crazy person, whatever like that. Wichita State, top 25 team, some of the time, you got to go live in Wichita, is that a job? You could take Wichita State to the Final Four. It can happen, but is that a job you take? It's kind of one of those things. Are you sort of almost overqualified to being the first one? It's like Jackie Robinson was an instant all-star. It's almost like the whoever breaks the barrier is almost overqualified potentially, and so I don't know. It sort of seems like someone's got to take the chance. If I'm a mid-major, I'd hire Don Staley. I'd hire someone with the resume you're talking about, with that basketball pedigree resume. I would hire that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mid-majors are okay. Like even Shaka Smart, is he going back to Marquette? Is that where he's going now?
Yeah.
Like, would you count are they Big East or mid-major? I don't know what they are now. I think
let's say they're in that second tier. They're not in the Power 5. They're in that second tier of like they can compete, like a DePaul or so on and so forth. They can compete. They're in that. The Villanova is not in the quote unquote Power 5 conference. So
right. Yeah. So I would take that, or like Penny Hardaway taking over Memphis. Trying to get any positions like that where if you can recruit, it's like, hey, you're gonna get. You should get some athletes here. You're not getting the one and dones unless you're, like Penny, who's, hey, you AAU'd it and you.
Well, that didn't work out so great.
I mean, hey, Wiseman's Wiseman. But I think something like that, But as far as timing, man,
who knows?
I don't know, bro.
I think the thing about it is that in terms of the talent available, there just could be someone that could absolutely crush it. And if you're the 100th best men's college basketball program in the country, like in some sense, like I'd roll the damn dice. I'd say, let's bring in the most talented candidate. If the most talented candidate's resume is from the women's game, whatever it is, let's bring him or her in. Let's do it. I don't know, but it's a bit of a risk taking mentality, right?
I mean, I think you can market the crap out of that too, though. When you're DePaul, you're like, we have the first women's head coach in college basketball come through, support. So those first 2 or 3 years, you're just getting the love of, hey, you got her. And then you usually only get like 2 or 3 years into like, so we're not winning.
Yeah.
Right. Like you still have a small
rebuilding.
Window,
Exactly. I mean, anyone that gets hired, you're not taking over a great situation. Almost sure. Like the Roy Williams thing is more of an exception than the rule, right? Where you have a good recruiting class and so forth, right? I agree. It would be, to me, I'm with you. You get all that. If I'm a chancellor and I'm looking at my program, if I'm outside of that top 20 schools that just haven't really figured out, I'd say, look, convince me not to shake it up and just shake things up and be the one that shakes it up. And I just want to be known as the one that shook it up and gave someone a chance. Like, I don't know. That's how great things happen. So I hope it happens. I was like super long shot hoping it would happen for Carolina, but I think that's it's probably not going to happen at that, Carolinas of the world. I don't think that would be wild if it had. I would have been
right. Well, can you imagine if you're Hubert Davis? You're like, I've been on the bench as the number 2 for 9 years. I know. What else I got to do, man?
Just anyone else gets it. No, it would have been the hardest. No, yes, I think they went the direction everybody thought they would, but no, interesting conversation, and I do hope it happens, and it was great to see from my perspective that the women's game is ahead in many dimensions, and it's a good product. I think the basketball rights, the television rights for the women's tournament, the value. I read the valuations going up and up. that there's a lot of investing around the women's sports in on the whole. And I think what we've seen with like Netflix with the Formula One show, not sure if you watch it, there's different ways to market
You know,
sports.
I don't watch that. Let's be real.
I mean, I know you. We should talk about that because I'm like super into this stuff now. Like my wife is making fun of me about like in a nice way, but like I'm super into it. But there's more ways to market a product, and it doesn't. The personalities and there's close games. I feel like there's just more opportunities to market the women's game than ever before. So I think there's a huge growth opportunity. I'm big investor. I'd be a big investor in women's sports in general right now from what I've seen. Women's college basketball is one of the biggest women's sports out there, but would be cool to see. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a waiting game, but when it will happen, I hope it happens sooner rather than later. But I agree with you. It's probably going to happen more into that DePaul style school, not the Carolina style school.
Yeah. And I'll put my bet in. Becky Hammond's going to be the first one.
Okay.
And she can say, if I could coach Tim Duncan, I can coach you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's hard to refute that.
You think she'll, I mean, she's in the pro game. Do you think she'll be, or do you think
go to college?
Go to college.
I think that immediate, like, I think she's got the respect in San Antonio, but I just don't know if you're like, all right, we're going from Pop to Becky. It's going to happen someday. I could be wrong, but I think it's a more likely jump for her to say, all right, now I'm running whatever DePaul or some low Power 5 school.
Yeah, that's the one though. I don't know. That's a tougher sell to me to go from being sort of Pop's number 2 to I don't know. I agree with you. Like a school like Memphis, a place DePaul you can recruit up. I could see it happening. That would again be a massive deal. I mean, it would just be the biggest thing to happen, I think, in the men's college game that year. Like that's a massive barrier to break down, you know. And so I with you, Becky Hammond, obviously incredibly well respected, and how hard would it be to her to rise to the ranks? How good must she be at coaching to rise to the ranks as she has, given she's the first? I mean, she's got to be. Yeah,
she's a good player, good coach. You know, it's one of those like, she's good at this.
Yeah,
like,
just good
playing basketball all her life, just like everybody else.
Man, I'm sort of like the people that love basketball, especially the ones that really, really love it, and you can just tell all they think about is basketball. I think she's one of those people. I'm sort of jealous of that because, like, I think we both like our jobs, but like, I'm not thinking about like it at night in this way of like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. You know, it's what I do in my free time too. You know, like I don't know about you. It's not quite that, but some of these people, I think she's one of those people. It's like, no, this is what you do. This is who you are. You know, like.
Yeah, right. Like I wish I could be someone. My job is my life passion.
Yeah,
the same. You know, like they're one and the same. I guess that has its pros and cons because they're just like, hey, I'm kind of losing my mind at my job, but it's also all I love in life. What do I do else?
Yeah,
like, so I guess you just got to start building a lot of hobbies. So that you don't burn out on both your passion and your job because that can put you in a weird place.
I feel you. I've worked with a couple people like that in my life that it is their jam, and it's hard because like what for me is like a dispassionate business meeting is like for them like this is the hopes and dreams, and you're like, okay, it's not. That's gonna make it difficult, you know what I mean? But
when you have that real talk to them, like, so the numbers aren't looking good, and we might have to stop funding this soon, like very soon. You need to get yourself prepared for this.
Yeah, no, and then that's like, what are you doing in my dreams? I'm like, this is your, anyway, strokes, different strokes, different folks kind of thing. But yeah, no, I think but that F1 show, I mean, it came up, pretty dope show, right? Am I wrong? Is that not just like,
I'm a typical American. I don't know anything about F1 other than Lewis Hamilton wins that thing all the time. And I was listening to some other podcasts, and dude was like, I've started getting F1, and it's like a big deal over there if you start in the 12th position to end in like 5th. They're like, that is the driver of the race. I'm like, that is not an American sentiment. Like it's full what, Ricky Bobby, your first or your last over here.
It is. I was having the exact same reflection of all this sort of midfield battles, which is like, 12th to 5th. But then I think to myself, like, okay, we grew up in Houston, like the Texans have been terrible forever. And if they're like 9-6, we're stoked, or 9-7. It's sort of the same thing. Like we know every year you wake up as a Texans fan, if you are a Texans fan, you know it's not going down. Super Bowl is not going down. And you're just hoping for like not 4-12. So is it similar in that respect? I agree with like motorsports. It's all about winning. Like in NASCAR, no one talks about sixth places, not near as much. But I don't know. Is that the analog? I was trying to figure out myself. Like, how can you get so stoked about being like P12, P7, P7? Yeah, great job. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But like, six other dudes beat you. You know?
Yeah, like I think in football, an example, there's just the hope factor. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a chance, right?
Yeah.
And also the top turns over a fair amount. Like other than the consistency of Tom Brady and maybe now, why can't I think the quarterback on Mahomes? Yeah. So maybe he's now going to be another more consistent piece. You're like, but the Bucks didn't go to the playoffs the year before they won, right? So it's not atypical to go from we weren't in the playoffs to we're in the Super Bowl, right? And I think that amount of dramatic turnover is what brings you back. Now, our own personal struggle and hate of the Texans, that's its own separate, thing that we got going, because it's like, hey, we have a 13-3 year, we're rolling, team looks good. Oh my God, we're playing the Pats in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it's not going to go well.
Even 2 years ago, we're up 20 points or whatever
Chiefs?
It was.
Yeah, fake punt
on
time.
the Chiefs.
Yeah,
and then.
Yeah,
we're like, oh, we'll always find a way to make our fans hate themselves.
No, I'm with you. I find it interesting to watch that show with how the teams are run, and you have like the Mercedes team where this guy Toto is like, we don't blame the people, we blame the problem, we solve the problem, we succeed, and Lewis Hamilton's like, I'm just a fast racer and I'm awesome dude and I'm great to everybody. And then you have other teams are like, man, F my teammate, F the team manager. Like, it's complete mess, which I just love. Working at a company, I'm like, this is how you run. Just watch. This is how it's supposed to work. Like, it's just this, it's more of like a workplace comedy for me than the F1 part of it. The F1 part's like a sideshow, you know?
So you're watching F1 The Office.
Yeah, it's F1 The Office. It's like they put these, and they're like, they put these combustible personalities in the same mix, and they're like all these, and you see the Mercedes team, and they're just like, yeah, no, we're just all business, and we're gonna wreck on these fools. Like I don't know. It feels to me like they've done a good job of layering in like 20% car racing and 80% like everything else, like anthropological viewpoint, workplace comedy, everything. And I just like, you don't have to like auto racing to like that show. Now that being said, I've gotten into it. And one of the things about this parody is in 2022, they're having a salary cap effectively on how much you can spend on the car. And it's expected to greatly equalize the field. And,
so I was going to ask you on that because I was listening to a podcast and the dude is like, I'm starting to get into F1. He's like, yeah, Mercedes wins everything. They have the best car. They spend the most money. Yeah. Everyone knows Mercedes is going to win. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's fun in that.
Yeah, no, it's not fun. And they've now realized that like you could put really anyone on the 20-person field in the second car of Mercedes and they're going to get top 5. The car's just that much better. And the difference in the drivers is just not that great. But next year they're going to have a new car that has different aerodynamic properties. And in particular, it will allow the cars to, in groups, be able to compete with each other better. It will lessen the properties of drafting and stuff like this. And secondly, it will have this salary cap of how much you can spend on the car, and it will greatly equalize it. So Mercedes is gonna have to like lay off people and really cut down on their team, and almost all the teams will spend a similar amount on the car. The driver's salary can be whatever it is. So you can still, Lewis Hamilton costs £40 million a year. You're still gonna have to pay Lewis, but it will be interesting. I think it could be like a total mess. And in fact, some of the manufacturers are talking about maybe getting out of the business because Mercedes doesn't want to be in there if they're not number 1. I think like that brand doesn't want to finish 8th to like Renault and like some McLaren and Williams and all these teams. Like that's not what they're in it for. They're in it to win, right? So it'll be interesting.
Can you imagine applying that same logic to other sports? Is like horse racing. Like, oh, you can only put 50K inside that horse. Yeah. Like, so do whatever you can, but 50K, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely. I think it's reflecting that people look in Europe at these North American sports and the salary caps, and the same thing with English soccer or Spanish soccer. You just know blind who are the top 3 teams. You don't have to follow. You can say, oh, Liverpool, Manchester City, whatever, whatever it is. You just know those teams because they're spending so much more. And like you said, in American sports, there's always the hope. And is it based in so much reality? No, but to your point, it's hard to repeat as champions. It's hard to finish in the top X every year. I would say it really adds a lot of fan value. And F1, I think, is looking at that, and they're looking at how to grow the sport, and it's about competitive balance, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, and the point you made on soccer, kind of, I guess the best corollary here is baseball, right?
Yeah.
MLB doesn't have a cap
No.
in that way, and you're just like, oh, you look at the Yankees, Padres, LA budgets, you're like, oh, it's crazy. And then the Marlins, I don't know, one guy on one of these teams probably makes more than all of the Marlins salaries put together, and that's where things get weird.
It is, and without the relegation aspect, then there's like no competition at the bottom, and with the revenue sharing, you can just like actually have that incentive to be bad. Whereas at least in European soccer, if you get relegated out, your TV revenue goes down so precipitously that you really don't want to be in the bottom two or bottom three. So you can't just be terrible. But I agree with you. There are some baseball teams that have been fielded in the last 10 years that you're like, that's a AAA team. Like, not even trying to hate on someone. That's a AAA team with like
our Astros being one of them.
Oh, Astros in the rebuilding years was a AAA team. Like, it was Jose Altuve and a AAA team. You know?
Talking about soccer real quick, of what I watched, have you seen Ted Lasso?
I have not. I'm not on Apple TV, but I really want to. I hear it's super heartwarming and great.
So I crushed that one in maybe 3 or 4 days. I was like, okay, yeah, it's good. I'm like, yeah, they deal with soccer team, will they get relegated or not? But surprisingly good show, and surprisingly more F-bombs and cursing. I was like, oh, I did not know Apple TV was so filthy over here.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, this is a real soccer team. You dropping some bombs.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I like the concept. I like Jason Sudeikis. I'm gonna have to check it out. Look at the show notes, Jeremy. I see you have something written here from Jeremy. Had a Chick-fil-A. It's still the bomb. That's a talking point. Mm-hmm. Walk me through this talking point.
Just a note. I have to remind you. I don't know how much you
don't get Chick-fil-A out here.
Chick-fil-A in your European life, but having one of those weekend nights, I was like, you know what? Chick-fil-A, sure. Let's go on these sandwiches. And yeah, still freaking great. I remember back in high school when we had the Chick-fil-A day. You can buy your little Chick-fil-A sandwich at lunch for like $4. So still the bomb. And I don't know if you've been away, like the chicken sandwich wars have been going on here for like a year plus.
Uninformed entirely on this, but jealous because we do not have any equivalent out here of this stuff.
Yeah, man. Popeyes put out this chicken sandwich. I want to say maybe 2 years ago. I don't know what time it is anymore. But it was like, oh my God, this like spicy Popeyes chicken sandwich is the bomb. So then Wendy's has to make their, McDonald's makes their own. Chick-fil-A says nothing and just keeps slanging their regular things. But it's a full-on battle out here, and I'm all the way down for it. Give me all the chicken sandwiches. I'll try them all, man.
Bruh, I remember when I was living in San Diego at my grad school program, my cousin, Ranjan, I think he loved KFC. You know, KFC just every month they have new chicken pot pie, new something like that. We lived across the street from a KFC, and we'd see a commercial, and this is when I knew marketing works. We'd see a commercial, new KFC homemade chicken pot pie, and he's like, we got to have it. I'm like, okay, let's walk across the street and get it. We walk across the street and get it. Every single time he'd be like, it tastes a lot like the other stuff. I'm like, they have like 3 ingredients back there. It's really not going to be that different. But it was most Americanized consumer ever, but yeah, I miss this kind of wars out. We do not have that out here, man. I miss it.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all have fromage wars out there or something. I don't know what the.
It's just
not. Yeah, man.
It's just there's KFCs. There's a couple in Amsterdam. My wife and I ordered Papa John's pizza like 10 days ago on a flyer. Had not had Papa John's or any American style pizza in a while. Not gonna lie, we got sick as shit. We genuinely got sick, and I'm not saying it's because of Papa John's. We just hadn't eaten anything that like. It's just so different than like a European style pizza. We were just like, and it was so good though. It was we ate. I was just like, it was so good. But no, I miss chicken sandwich wars. It's not a thing in Europe. It just doesn't happen. So I'm missing the chicken sandwich wars. Noted. Chick-fil-A still the bomb. It's literally what it says. Chick-fil-A still the bomb. And then the next thing you have written here, and this is what you have written. Harden says he's an MVP. Are we from Houston having a Brokeback Mountain movie moment? I can't quit you. That's what you've written down, which I believe is the Jake. I can't quit you. Like, we just can't quit James Harden. So are we now James Harden fans again? Because I'm almost ready to be a James Harden fan again. I've gone through the arc of hate to like I'm just a fan of his now. Like 6 weeks later, like where are you on that? I can't quit him arc.
Yeah, it's just hard to give up 8 years or whatever that you've been with somebody like that. It's like, yeah, man, you made me upset for a bit, down, but then you kind of see that person again. You're like, shit, I might still have some feelings here. All right, so now it's like, damn, you're like, man, maybe Harden should be the MVP. KD has been out. I mean, his numbers are looking pretty good. He put up triple doubles. Kyrie's out. I don't know, James. Maybe you got me back, baby. Maybe we need to run this back. Let's do it. We had some issues. We trying to work through them. So we officially there. I don't know if my pullback, the broke back, if that was let's say assisted or not.
I mean. I love the reference. I haven't watched that movie. I remember that one line, I just can't quit you. And I feel you, man. If he's kind of just an awesome player. Like we liked him for so long. I'm like, I don't know. Looking at the Rockets now, he was kind of right. I don't know. I can't hate him.
Yeah, they're not good.
They're not good.
But yeah, it's love you. I shouldn't have listened to you as much, but
yeah, no.
Hey, I'm still gonna enjoy your prime, man. Well, we got probably another couple years of this, so let's soak it in.
All right, so we're back to being update for the listeners. About 4.5 to 6 weeks later, we're just full arc. We're back on. We cannot quit you, James Harden. We're back to being fans. Funnily enough, I was talking to Nathan, who we talk about sometimes, and he tells me, "Hey, Nets are plus 300 to win the championship. I made some moves there. I put some bets down." And my wife and I text him, "We thought you hated him," and he just replies back one sentence. That value though. I'm like, okay, fine. So like for him, he's a value seeking individual. And so he's just out there. Well, okay, plus 300. I don't know. Plus 300. I don't know. To me, versus the field, I don't know, but okay, go for it.
I mean, I think he's right. There's value there. I also appreciate his ability to detach his personal feelings and hate with making $1.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the love of gambling shall not stand in the do not let personal animus stand in the way of your gambling, which is smart. If you are gambling, it is definitely bad to gamble with your heart. So that is smart. Fully agree. Well, Jay, what's our tech news of the week, man? I know we have some good topics lined up there.
Yeah, there are a few different things here. Man, I am having a baby brain fart. So I think, okay.
You got them?
Here, there's a few I've written down, but I'm kind of throw the one that I just read about yesterday. If we don't like this, we can go on to another one. Yeah. But so how streaming's a thing now, and you're talking to folks, and you don't know what kind of hot garbage may or may not come over because the world can still be kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Kind of joke or thing that's going around now is Intel's put out some bleep software, I believe they call it.
Okay.
So while you are hearing, someone on whatever stream you're doing, it will try to filter out words that are said based on your settings. And when I say settings, it's full on settings. Just to give you an example here, we have just N-word. So that's just that's a toggle. That's binary, on or off.
Just toggle. Do you want
just
N-word
toggle?
in
Yeah, like okay, let N-word through here. Like we good. But then you get stuff like racism and xenophobia. How much do we filter? None, some, most, or all. What does that mean? What is filter out most xenophobia? How do you feel? Now I kind of want to use it to know what's the bar on this. How much xenophobia does most actually filter from me?
And sorry, who's the user of the N-word one? Is it that like individual that claimed diabetes? So it's like, I want a live stream, but I know that my friends and I use this word that I shouldn't use, and it's gonna bleep it out. Is that it, or is it like is that the use case here, or is it more like
Yeah, so this is actually the reverse. This is what you want to consume. This is what I am opening myself to hear. Do I want to hear N-words? Do I want to let some swearing come through?
Okay, or some xenophobia come through.
Yeah. And I also, one I see now in their image, white nationalism. Again, I wonder what filtering most white nationalism lets through. So could you imagine being working on the product? Be like, hey, homeboy, yo, John, yeah, what's the actual level of white nationalism we're gonna put with most
Right.
point seven white nationalism? Yeah, point
Yeah.
seven. That's what that means now.
Yeah.
Run with it.
Yeah. That is, we're sort of like, we, we're in this generation. I remember, you hear a lot from economists where you say, hey, that generation that was born in, say, 1890, born steam trains, no cars, et cetera, dies, man on moon, cars everywhere, jumbo jets, et cetera. And that was the time span where things changed the most and I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. We were born tape recorders, VHS, TV with bunny ears antenna, and now we're talking about live processing audio to fundamentally change how I can consume anything ambiently based on this. And this is just the start, right? We're talking about deep fakes and the ability to reproduce. Are we nearing the point where you just can't trust your eyes and ears because of how much processing can apply to it, and you really have to have like pure, raw, authenticated something, whatever that means? Or is this something that, like 3D printing or whatever, that we're going to hear about, and ultimately just like a lot of the other innovations in our lifetime haven't been that, man on the moon, car, jumbo jet type deal? What do you think?
You know, definitely that stuff's getting weird. I've
Yeah.
seen some of this deep fakes are just getting better and better. And now they're like AI taking old photos and animating them and making them smile. And just like, this kind of looks like a movie from this,
It does.
image from 1840 that you've
It
touched
does.
up. That's insane.
It does.
So yeah, it's funny on kind of the getting the true source. I feel like we might have to start having audio and video on the blockchain, so you have a specific key that you're now pairing back to say this is the actual raw like sound or video I made with this cryptographic bit that you can pair back to know it's the actual real deal, because it's gonna get
Yeah, it's
really
gonna
weird.
get weird. It's gonna. But you remember, like, in World War II, they would fly the planes over and drop propaganda pamphlets, and people read them. And at that point in time, a lot of people wrote about was that the print media, people had they didn't really realize that you could be misled, and something printed had a lot of credibility. And remember the first stages of the internet, there were all these bogus news sites that people realized, oh, you can't believe everything you read online. But here, you sort of like drop a video in my feed, and it looks like I don't know, Obama talking about something he never said, and you're like, that's going to convince a lot of people. That it's super scary to me to like explain, well, that wasn't blockchain authenticated and that's a fake. Well, it's like, well, how many people will believe it? I think most. I don't know. To me, this is like this sort of alternate facts, alternate construction thing. I think is going to be I actually think a defining aspect of the 21st century.
It's gonna be weird, man, because if you have a political opponent, right, you concede,
Yeah.
kind of whatever videos, and now it's kind of this authenticated blockchain thing. You're gonna be like, hey, that video didn't have like the blue verified check mark,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we don't 100% know
Yeah.
that's the original Obama video, and it's gonna be stuff like that. So this is kind of one of those arguments where when Zuckerberg kind of says, hey, we're the only people with enough resources to deal with things. So most of that is bullshit. Let's be fair. But on stuff like this, we're like, okay, people are going to distribute these videos. Social networks are going to exist. Some regulation might change something but it's going to take a lot of money to combat what looks to be 100% authenticated video and voice of someone. You're like, yeah, we got through a lot of humans at that to say that is not real.
And that's the thing, is that, and not to get too deep into a technical discussion, but one of the foundational technologies that is building these fake videos is what's called generalized adversarial networks, which you might have heard of. And the idea here, I can describe it with like a picture. The idea here is that if I build a machine learning classifier to say this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a chair, then if I can classify something like that, I can build a generator of just pixels, just randomly making pictures. And I can just do this randomly enough. And then eventually I create a chair, and the computer says, it's a chair. Then I learn how I created that in the neural network. And that's how I can start making artificial pictures of chairs. And you can see with like artificial faces, you might have seen New York Times articles, I can create faces this way, completely synthetic faces. But the problem with this is that the generation technology and the ability to classify fakes are really linked, because by construction, it's trying to classify something you will not be able to tag as an artificial face. So I build a classifier that says tag artificial faces, and then I create, with my neural network, lots of faces. And the ones that get through are the ones I say is a synthetic face. So it's like a really close leveling of the detection technology and the creation technology. And that's what scares me, like you said, with humans, because precisely the stuff that gets by the checks is how we're building the algorithm to create it. And so blockchain is a different thing, but just having the video asset, machine learning is not a great solution for this, because it was created. Yes, I can build a better mousetrap, but in real time, I'm not that optimistic you can do that. I think you said, it's got to be it's kind of scary though, huh? Like that when you understand how it's done, you're like, ooh, that's how it's done. So you're only putting the stuff that beats the fraud detector, that's scary,
right? You're just like, ooh, it's one of those like, okay, well, glad I don't have to deal with this problem right now. See you in whatever 2, 5, 10 years, where it's like we're gonna experience it, right? And then we are. I don't know if this is something where you have to have more regulation, right? Because at some point you're like, this is my likeness.
Yeah,
you're not, this defamation lawsuit. Like I don't know how we're gonna,
and then somehow you prove it, and look, I'm with you, and this one is like I've never gotten too scared of the Terminator style AI takes over the world and shoots us down. Like I think it's not something that can be ignored. Automated military stuff like that, not something can be ignored. But ultimately, the gap between where our AI is today and that sort of thing is so big that as long as the robot vacuum still can't do this with the shoelaces crossed up, I'm not too worried. But this stuff scares the shit out of me, because this is allowing humanity to use its worst instincts against them. Create fake shit, convince a lot of people of fake shit, and rile people up to do bad stuff. Like history can say, if you can do that, you can do get some really bad outcomes. And this is a technological tool to do that. Kind of petrifies me, to be honest with you. I agree. It's not like a today problem, but I feel like it's going to be one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this person said that or not. I don't know. Like they say they did.
Imagine we just have to have that talk. You're like, mama, that video, that's not really him.
That's not real.
That's not really him, Mom.
That's not real.
Like, how? It looks like him.
Yeah,
it sounds like him.
Yeah.
Like, fair point.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, it damn sure does.
No, I don't know. So that's a good one. So since you led with the tech, I'll go with our screw up of the week. I'm leading out here with Florida Representative Matt Gaetz, who, as you might have heard, got himself ensnared in seems to be a number of legal issues, crossing state lines with a minor in order to to statutorily rape the minor is one of them. Close association with a known human trafficker is another. The FBI investigation was started under Bill Barr, it turns out, and was placed under seal. So I'm going to go ahead and hazard a guess that Bill Barr is not going to start an investigation into a congressional Republican without a mountain of evidence. And recently, one of the investigators came out and said, we can't speak specifically to the case, but we want to assure you we do not reveal an investigation into a sitting member of Congress without a mountain of evidence, TLDR. So I think he's sort of circling the drain. He also seems to be involved in a lot of bad stuff. He's got like a kid that lives with him. That's his son. There's a lot of stuff circling this guy. He is a screw up just in life, in my opinion, because he's just, misogynistic and all this stuff, but, and racist and everything like that. But further, it looks like his time is nigh in Congress. And it turns out there are people that have issues with sexual conduct with minors in Congress. It just not the QAnon style theory. So I don't know how you feel about it, but this is one of those. I read a New York Times article. It said, quote, or I think it was New York Times, it's always the ones you most suspect. And I was like, that sounds right.
Right. So I must admit, this is one I have not educated myself a lot. I've seen the headlines all over the place, like Matt Gaetz, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And I guess I did read something about him going on Tucker Carlson and kind of trying to rope Tucker.
Oh, yeah. He's like, you remember I was on dinner? Yeah.
You remember that? And I hear after Tucker's like, what the F, man? Like, no, do not breathe. He's like, I'm down for some crazy stuff. I put things I can't believe on Fox, and she's like, but I cannot roll with you on this.
No.
You need to leave me out of here.
No.
And if Tucker needs to tap out on you, yeah, you done some wild stuff.
No, and 2 days later, FoxNews.com had a full-length article on detailing the allegations and really painted a picture that he is not someone to stand behind. And I cannot think the two events are coincidental, but ultimately what you have here is a substantial amount of evidence that he was compensating individuals for sexual interactions, and there's evidence to say that some of those individuals were minors. And now I don't want to speculate, but I would say if you're interested, get on Reddit. The speculation as to this Cuban son of his, who is the younger brother of his ex-girlfriend, who is 15 years younger than her. There's some speculation now of this person you think is a son and is actually the younger brother of an ex. Kind of weird. So I think there might be another shoe dropping here about this individual. Won't speculate further, but I don't think we've heard the last of this. I think it's going to end up being this guy's going to federal prison, and that's how it's going to end. I think this is one of those ones that ends in prison.
That is a wild. Your ex-girlfriend.
So yeah, so remember when he came out,
and we're saying that's my son. Wink.
When he came out, this guy lives with him. This young man lives with him, and he came out when he was getting called a racist and stuff. He said, "How can I be a racist? I got this 17-year-old boy living with me that's of Cuban descent, and I consider him a son." And they said, "Well, how do you know him?" He said, "Well, he's the younger brother, 15 years younger than this woman I dated 15 years ago." And so it's like, wait, what? And so maybe he's just, kind of pseudo-adopted someone who was a younger brother of someone he used to date. I guess it's stranger things have happened, Jeremy. It's certainly possible, but it's
possible.
It's possible. It's also, I think, possible that that individual is the ex-girlfriend's son, not brother, and that's the speculation. Certainly not asserting it, but also potentially possible. Stranger things have happened, but it's a little odd to me that this person who he lives with calls his son that is the younger brother of this ex-girlfriend. At the very least, I think there's something untoward happening there. That would be my guess. Now, whether it's his actual biological son or not, he did say it's like a son to him or a son. So I don't know. It's worth, if you want to sort of get a 30-minute into a 30-minute rabbit hole, which is devoid of a lot of evidence, except for the facts we know, which just don't make any sense as to why. I don't know about you, how many of your girlfriends from 15 years ago's 15 younger brothers are you bringing into your house? You're a 38-year-old man. He's a 38-year-old man. Is that something you sort of line up and do every day?
I mean, no. We have to be super duper and married before long time.
Yeah.
I this is literally a son. Whatever's going on with the partner no longer with has to be a totally screwed up situation. There's got to be a lot of steps to get to me. Like, yeah, so now he lives with me.
Yeah. So there's a story here. This guy, and then it comes out, it's like, well, he was known to have contests to sleep with women and show nude pictures of women in the Florida State House and stuff like this. And you're like, he was known to do. If someone at my work was doing this, we'd fire him. Like, the stuff you can get away with. It's like, oh, well, he was known to do that. It's like, that was he was known to do it type thing. Like, what? When I read these stories, it's always like, well, that was known. It's like, okay, like. Interesting. I didn't realize that was known. I don't know. I don't follow this man's, the details here. I just thought he was a known idiot, not like a known misogynistic, etc. But so he's our screw up of the week. My guess is, based on this other part, that he's going to reappear as a screw up of the week sometime in a future date, which we sometimes we see a pattern there. So
right. We reserve the right to recall you as our screw up of the week.
That's right. And then, just to make sure we hit our segments before we hit our time limit, the European news of the week, Jeremy, is this Alexei Navalny, which I think you've heard of. He's the main critic of Putin, and he fled the country because he had been poisoned previously and arrived in Germany and was brought back to health. He was poisoned. It's come out by a KGB agent, has come out and admitted he was part of the poisoning, and they did it via his underwear and put poison laced in his underwear. They tracked him for 2 years. He returned to Russia, and he's in a prison camp, and now he can't feel his hands or legs. And there's no direct evidence he's being poisoned, but he's in a prison camp in Russia from a group that already tried to poison him, and now he can't feel his hands or legs. And the Russian people are talking protest, but that's what's going on. It's pretty scary stuff when you're talking about the main critic of the government. Now he's back in prison, and his lawyer said he cannot feel his hands or legs. So I don't know. It's one of those things that has global implications, but not sure if you've heard about it or any sort of thoughts on it. If it's striking that American consciousness much right now or not.
Yeah, so I've seen some I think 60 Minutes piece from the first thing when
Yeah.
the underwear poisoning and all that. So I know of it. The more recent situation, at least, has not made its way to me. You know, I think I'm decently read, but I don't keep up on all Russian political situations. So you know, maybe I'm just out of the loop on this. But I mean, is this that surprising? Kind of.
I would say not surprising, but a little more brazen than I would have thought. You know, it's like, I'd say an emboldened dictator is what I fear the most. I mean, there's dictators all over the world, but the ones that I feel like they're like children. If they get away with something, they do more. So they poisoned the guy. It came out the KGB did it. There's really no consequences. And now it's like, well, okay, let's just re-poison him. You know, there's no consequence the first time. Putin just seems more and more emboldened. The scary thing to me is what happens in 5 years when he's changed the constitution, so there's no term limits. I mean, we're not at the end game with Putin yet, and he seems to be doing things that are much bolder. I would say I'm not surprised, but it's a brazen and bold, and that's concerning.
Yeah, I think he's been emboldened quite a while ago.
Fair.
Right? Fair. It's been just like, you know what? No term. I'm just going to be this until I die. Screw this. What was he in between? Like for a little bit, he wasn't.
Yeah,
the
he was.
prime
I think he was
minister
like president, not prime minister, for a little bit. He's kind of out of the mix, and he's back in.
Right. And then they're just like, nah, actually, prime minister, keep this for forever. So to me, this just seems like par for the course. I really don't know what to do here because we kind of know how they operate, unless the world's going to put more sanctions or something. This is.
There's sort of a reality here with Europe. Is Europe's buildings in the winter cannot be heated without Russian natural gas. There's no alternative right now. It's not like there's some alternative. There's not. The reason that Ukraine situation and the Crimean elections, which was 97% for secession, and I will go ahead and say 97% of people don't vote for anything. 97% of people can't. It's not going to happen. That's one of those deals. Like if you want to cheat. But if you say 97%, you're just making it obvious at this point.
Right.
There's a reason no one did anything. Is because the Ukraine couldn't make it through the winter without the Russian natural gas. And right now, the liquefaction processes and stuff like this, there's just not enough ability to deliver natural gas to landlocked places without Russian pipelines. So there's nothing we can do. There's no, you cannot say, that's their chief export. That's how they make their money. And Europe would freeze without it. So when people ask, why aren't people doing more? It's because they do not want their population to freeze. That is the answer. The electricity would not run through, the heating would not run through. It is not possible right now. So I think, just like you said, he's been emboldened for years. Once this, with this energy economics, this geopolitical landscape out here, he just has, there's no realistic sanctions. So I think, unfortunately, if I was that guy went back to be a hero, I'm like, you know what I would never do? Go back to someone that spent 2 years trying to poison me and kill me. If you spend 2 years trying to kill me, I'm never going back to where you're at. That's a general life rule for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd be like, you know what? America's cool or whatever. France, UK, pick your country. But you're not going to see me in Russia, though.
No.
You won. You poisoned my drawers.
You poisoned my jars. That's it. You won. Yeah, that's it. I was going to be someone prime minister and you poisoned my jars, nearly killed me. I'm sorry. That's it. That's every person has a limit. It's got to be the jars poisoning has got to be the limit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I'm like, if that doesn't make you tap out, I guess you're just true for the cause for forever. But I'm tapping out.
I'm 100% tapping out on that. And I don't know if you read about it, like the lengths he had to go. Like he couldn't order food. He had to cook. Everything in his life in Russia was like he couldn't just trust buy anything because the KGB was on top of him to lace the food or something like that. It's like I'd be so out. I'd go live in Omaha, Nebraska, and be in the witness protection program, bro. Like I'd be out. You know what I mean?
It's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm living, whatever. I'm gonna have some internet and go get me some Chick-fil-A's and not care about this no
That's
more.
it. Sandwich Wars. I think that's a good place to stop, man. Bringing it back to Sandwich Wars. That's the theme of the thing. So, we would like to remind all our listeners, hey, we're available on all major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify. We're on YouTube. We appreciate the support. We're just getting started. So any comments, engagement we have, we appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe. If you're on one of those podcasting channels, click follow, click subscribe. We really appreciate all the support. And we'll be back with you next week. Sound good?
I'm good.
All right.
Let's do it, brother.